Welcome back to WION World is One. You're watching Speed News with me, Vidur Kathuria. Let's get started. Iran and the United States are preparing for nuclear talks in Oman. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Oman and is scheduled to meet US President Donald Trump's West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff. This as Washington seeks diplomatic progress on the Iranian nuclear program and other issues while refusing to rule out military action. Speaking to the press, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that Trump is looking forward to the talks to determine whether a deal can be struck with Iran amid a US military build-up in the region. Iran's long-range Khorramshahr-4 hypersonic ballistic missile have been deployed for the first time in the so-called underground missile cities on Iranian territory. The advanced missile reportedly has a range of 2,000 kilometers and is capable of carrying a 1,500-kilogram warhead. The deployment of the missile reportedly comes as the IRGC shifts from a defensive position to an offensive position, adding that the pivot carries a clear message to regional and extra-regional adversaries. Israel has carried out extensive airstrikes on multiple Hezbollah weapon storage tunnels across Lebanon. The IDF has said several underground Hezbollah weapon storage sites were hit in a wave of airstrikes. The military says that in recent months it has identified Hezbollah activity at the sites, which it says constitutes a violation of the understandings between Israel and Lebanon. The second round of US brokered talks between Russia and Ukraine concluded in Abu Dhabi, with both sides agreeing to a large-scale prisoner exchange but failing to achieve substantive breakthroughs on core issues such as territorial arrangements and a ceasefire. Ukraine says the talks were conducted trilaterally before moving to group consultations. Its National Security and Defense Council Secretary Rustem Umerov said the Ukrainian delegation sought a dignified and lasting peace without disclosing specific outcomes. Russia's presidential special envoy Kirill Dmitriev said that there was progress and a positive movement forward in peace talks with Ukraine. The talks ended with no joint political or security statement. US President Donald Trump said the United States should have a new, improved and modernized treaty with Russia rather than extend the New START treaty. Posting on social media the day the Nuclear Arms Control Pact expired, Trump said that a new, improved, modernized treaty should be in place instead to be able to last long into the future. New START was the last in a series of nuclear agreements between Moscow and Washington dating back more than half a century to the Cold War. An amnesty law is being considered in Venezuela's legislature that would grant immediate clemency to people jailed for participating in political protests or critiquing public figures. Initial lawmaker approval. The bill would also reportedly return assets of those detained and cancel Interpol and other international measures previously issued by the government, allowing opposition figures in exile to return home. The bill passed unanimously in the first of two necessary votes at the National Assembly, which is controlled by the Socialist ruling party. The date for a second session to debate the matter has not yet been set. Professors, students and supporters staged an anti-US immigration and customs enforcement protest outside Colombia University, briefly shutting down traffic on Broadway before police moved in and arrested 12 people. Demonstrators held a sit-in in the middle of Broadway at 116th Street, chanting slogans as New York City police officers repeatedly warned them to clear the roadway. Protesters accused the university of cooperating with ICE and demanded the campus be declared a sanctuary. A union spokesperson for student workers of Columbia University accused the university of remaining silent during recent ICE actions involving students and said fear had become endemic on campus.
Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Our bomb is ISIS! Got to go!
Protesters gathered outside the Washington Post headquarters after the American newspaper owned by Amazon founder Jeff Bezos announced layoffs affecting more than 300 employees. Citing financial pressures and restructuring efforts, protesters held signs reading "Save the Post" as staff and supporters criticized the decision as a blow to journalism. The layoffs, which will hit one-third of the workforce across departments including editing, metro and sports, have drawn sharp criticism from both employees and advocates. Jeff Bezos acquired the Washington Post in 2013 for $250 million. Britain's King Charles was heckled by a man in the English village of Dedham. The man shouted inflammatory slogans as the king was walking past a crowd of onlookers. Police pulled the heckler away from the crowd and escorted him away. In light of the latest release of files by the US Justice Department, the police said they were reviewing a new allegation against former Prince Andrew, who is King Charles's brother. Charles stripped Andrew of his titles in October and said he would be moved from his residence in Windsor after details emerged of his ongoing relationship with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
This is the only way to make it clear to people that Andrew should not be let off.
US President Donald Trump has softened his stance on a controversial deal in which Britain is set to return an Indian Ocean archipelago that hosts a key US-UK military base to Mauritius. Trump said he has had productive discussions with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer over the Chagos Islands, which house a US-British military base on Diego Garcia, the archipelago's largest island. He further said the deal, which he earlier described as an act of great stupidity, was the best Starmer could make under a deal agreed in last May. Britain would cede control over the islands to Mauritius but lease them for 99 years to ensure continued operations of the joint US-UK base. Residents of Woro in Kwara State began burying their dead after gunmen stormed the village in western Nigeria, killing at least 170 people and abducting dozens of women and children in one of the region's deadliest attacks in recent months. Men loaded bodies onto trucks and dug mass graves, covering them with sand and leaf branches as the community struggled to account for all the victims. The Kwara state government said 75 people have been confirmed killed so far in the attack on the Woro community, though the Red Cross put the death toll at 162 as of Wednesday evening. US President Donald Trump said Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi had his total endorsement ahead of a legislative election. He added that both the leaders would meet March 19th at the White House. This comes as Takaichi heads to a snap election she is widely expected to win. Opinion polls also seem to highly favor Japan's first female premier and her coalition party. Bangkok residents are hoping to see change in the new government as Thailand heads to a nationwide election on February 8th, with government formation expected to hinge on post-election talks. February's vote has settled into a three-way race between conservative Bhumje Thai Party, the former ruling Pheu Thai Party, and the reformist People's Party. The People's Party leader led opinion polls, underlining the challenge facing Anuthin's bid to remain in power. However, voters worry the uncertainty of outcomes and fear that political instability could impact their future, as past elections had not always resulted in clear or lasting governments. Storm Leonardo pounded the Iberian Peninsula with torrential rains, prompting more flood warnings as a man was killed by a deluge in Portugal. In southern Portugal, people waded waist-deep through Alcácer do Sal after the river Sado breached its banks. Restaurant terraces were completely underwater with sandbags stacked in front of doors to protect homes and shops. Leonardo is the latest in a wave of half a dozen winter storms to hit Portugal and Spain since the start of 2026, killing several people, ripping roofs off homes and flooding towns. Spain's emergency military unit and police officers rescued trapped residents and animals from flooded areas in southern Spain as Storm Leo continued to hit the Iberian Peninsula. Rivers and reservoirs in Spain and Portugal were on the verge of overflowing as a new weather front pounded the peninsula just a week after Storm Kristen left 6 people dead and thousands without power. In southern Spain's Andalusia, 14 rivers and 10 dams were at extreme risk of overflowing, compounded by saturated ground from earlier storms this month. At least 3,500 residents were evacuated in Andalusia. Authorities warned residents to avoid unnecessary travel and deployed 1,200 emergency personnel and 400 military service members for assistance. Snow and freezing rain hit Berlin's airport, causing airlines to delay or cancel multiple departing flights. The airport said no takeoffs were taking place due to weather conditions and asked passengers to check the status of their flights with the airlines. Flight departures resumed late in the morning. However, jets could not be de-iced due to rain that quickly turned into ice, doubling the time of an otherwise routine procedure. Snow and freezing rain fell during the night and in the morning in eastern Germany, causing disruptions on roads and for rail traffic. Environmental group Greenpeace staged a protest in front of Milan's main cathedral the day the Olympic torch arrived in the city, co-hosting the Winter Games. An installation depicted the Olympic rings dripping black oil, a visual denunciation of companies it accuses of contributing to global warming and threatening winter sports dependent on cold conditions. Greenpeace, which has filed a climate change lawsuit against ENI, has urged the Milano Cortina organizers to cut ties with the Italian energy major, arguing that ENI's fossil fuel operations undermine efforts to safeguard snow-based sport as temperatures rise. The Winter Olympics will run from February 6th to February 22nd. The Colombian capital of Bogota held its 28th annual Car-Less Day, prohibiting private cars and motorcycles from the streets between 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. This is in a bid to promote sustainable mobility, curb air pollution, and enhance urban quality of life. The event saw increased public transport usage, indicating a shift towards mass transit alternatives during the initiative. Bogota's Environment Secretariat expects a notable improvement in air quality, estimating particulate matter emissions will fall by as much as 69% compared to a regular traffic day. South Korea's markets led losses across Asia after a sharp tech sell-off on Wall Street. The Kospi plunged as much as 5% before trimming losses to just over 3%, with the tech-heavy Kosdaq also down more than 3%. In Japan, the Nikkei fell for a third straight session, with pharma stocks under pressure after US President Donald Trump announced a new website offering discounted prescription drugs. Hong Kong shares opened sharply lower. Mainland China edged down and Australia's ASX 200 dropped nearly 2%, rounding out a broadly weaker day for Asian markets. Oil prices extended losses on Friday, heading for their first weekly decline in over a month as fears of supply disruptions in the Middle East eased. Brent crude slipped below $67 a barrel, while US crude fell to around 62.7, both down nearly 1%. Markets are closely watching US-Iran nuclear talks in Oman, with hopes diplomacy could reduce the risk of conflict in a region critical to global oil flows. About 1/5 of the world's oil passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Analysts say while geopolitical tensions had lifted prices earlier, weak fundamentals and rising output, including from Kazakhstan, could push oil prices lower in the months ahead. Gold and silver extended sharp losses as a global tech rout and a firmer US dollar pressured precious metals. Spot gold slipped nearly 1% after tumbling about 4% in the previous session, while silver fell more than 3%, adding to a brutal sell-off that pushed prices to a 1.5-month low. Market nerves were driven by a broad decline in global equities, renewed concerns over the cost of the AI boom, and rising demand for the dollar amid stock market volatility, while weak US labor data reinforced expectations of future interest rate cuts. Safe haven buying failed to support metals. Platinum also slid sharply, while palladium edged higher. The US dollar is on track for its strongest weekly gain since November, holding near a 2-week high as a sharp sell-off in global tech stocks fuel risk aversion. The move follows President Donald Trump's nomination of Kevin Warsh as the next Federal Reserve Chair, with markets betting on fewer rate cuts ahead. Despite falling US Treasury yields and signs of a cooling jobs market, investors have favored the dollar as concerns grow over heavy AI spending and its wider economic impact. The euro and sterling remained under pressure, while the yen steadied ahead of Japan's national election this weekend. A vote closely watched amid fiscal worries that could ripple through global markets. SpaceX is reportedly developing new Starlink technologies that could bring satellite internet directly to personal devices, including a possible Starlink-connected mobile phone. The company is also working on direct-to-device internet capabilities, allowing smartphones to connect straight to its low Earth orbit satellite network without traditional cell towers. Elon Musk has said a Starlink phone is not out of the question as the company continues testing satellite-to-phone connectivity through existing mobile network partnerships. Two U.S. Democratic senators have written to the Pentagon requesting an immediate review of SpaceX following media reports and court testimony alleging that Chinese-linked investors may have acquired hidden stakes in the company. The lawmakers warned that any foreign ownership could pose national security risks given SpaceX's role in military satellite launches and its Starlink communications network used by defense agencies. The letter asks the Defense Department to assess whether SpaceX falls under foreign ownership and control rules and whether the investments should be reviewed by U.S. security authorities. Spotify has announced a new feature that will allow users to purchase physical books directly through its streaming platform, expanding the app beyond audiobook listening. The feature, developed in partnership with bookshop.org, will roll out in the US and the UK later this spring, with purchases handled through in-app links while the retailer manages inventory and delivery. The move builds on Spotify's growing audiobook ecosystem, which now covers 22 global markets and more than 500,000 English language titles as the company continues to expand its digital content platform. That's it on this edition of Speed News. News and updates will continue on the other side of this short break. Keep watching me on World is One.